Marcus Chen stood alone in his empty restaurant, his trembling hands clutching the day's final paperwork. The clock on the wall showed 9:30 p.m., but Golden Palace hadn't seen a customer since 7 p.m. 15 years of memories filled these walls, but tonight, they felt heavy with defeat. He walked slowly through the dining room, his footsteps echoing against the polished wooden floors. Each table he passed triggered a different memory. The corner booth where an elderly couple had celebrated their 50th anniversary, the window table where a young man had proposed last spring, and the large round table in the center where families gathered every Sunday for dim sum. The restaurant's red and gold decor, once vibrant and welcoming, now seemed to mock him. The dragon paintings on the walls, handed down from his grandfather, watched silently as Marcus faced the reality of his situation. Golden Palace, once the crown jewel of downtown's dining scene, was now just another casualty of hard times. Marcus remembered the date he'd opened the restaurant. He was just 25 then, full of dreams and armed with his grandmother's recipes. The first 5 years had been challenging but rewarding. Then came the golden period. Reservations booked weeks in advance, glowing reviews in local papers, and a loyal customer base that felt more like family than clients. But the past 2 years have been different. The pandemic had hit them hard, forcing them to shift to takeout-only service. Even after restrictions lifted, many of their regular customers never returned. Some had moved away, others had lost their jobs, and some had simply changed their habits. Rising food costs and utility bills delivered the final blow. Sarah, his head waitress for the past decade, had left tearfully last week. Today, he'd said goodbye to Ming, his trusted chef of 12 years. The kitchen, usually alive with sizzling woks and Ming's cheerful humming, was now silent and cold. Marcus walked into his office, where stacks of unpaid bills covered his desk. The bankruptcy papers lay on top, waiting for his final signature. His hands shook as he picked up his pen. The numbers didn't lie. He was $157,000 in debt, with no way to climb out of the hole. The sound of rain against the windows drew his attention. The weather matched his mood perfectly. As he moved to close the blinds, movement in the alley caught his eye. Through the rain-streaked glass, he saw a man huddled under a piece of cardboard, trying to shield something. No, someone, from the rain. Marcus squinted for a better look. The man wore what had once been business clothes, now wrinkled and worn. Beside him, a small figure in a pink jacket pressed close to his side, a child, a little girl. For a moment, Marcus forgot his own troubles. He watched as the man adjusted the cardboard to better protect his daughter from the rain. The girl couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. She clutched a worn backpack to her chest, her head resting against her father's shoulder. The scene struck something deep in Marcus's heart. He thought of his own father, who had worked 3 jobs to put him through culinary school. He thought of all the times his parents had gone without so he could have what he needed. Without fully realizing what he was doing, Marcus found himself walking to the back door. The bankruptcy papers lay forgotten on his desk. He unlocked the door, the sound of the rain growing louder. "Hey," he called out softly, not wanting to startle them. "You can't stay out here in this weather." The man looked up, his eyes wary but desperate. The little girl pressed closer to her father, her small face pale and tired. "There's a dry space inside," Marcus heard himself saying, "and I got some leftover soup from lunch." The man hesitated, pride warring with necessity on his face. A rumble of thunder made the decision for him. He stood slowly, helping his daughter up. "I'm David," he said quietly. "This is Sarah." Marcus held the door open wider. "I'm Marcus. Come on in." As he led them into the warmth of his failing restaurant, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months, a sense of purpose. Maybe, he thought, this wasn't the end of Golden Palace's story after all. Maybe it was just the beginning of a different one. He didn't know it yet, but that rainy night would change not just his life, but the lives of everyone involved in ways none of them could have imagined. The kitchen of Golden Palace came alive for the first time that day as Marcus heated the leftover wonton soup. He watched as David and Sarah sat at one of the empty tables, their wet clothes dripping onto the floor. Sarah's small hands were wrapped around a cup of hot tea, while David kept glancing around nervously, as if expecting to be told to leave at any moment. "It's not much," Marcus said, placing bowls of steaming soup in front of them, "but it's homemade." Sarah's eyes widened at the sight of food. She looked at her father, waiting for permission. David nodded, and she picked up her spoon with trembling hands. "Thank you," David said softly. "We haven't had a hot meal in 3 days." Marcus pulled up a chair and sat with them. As they ate, their story slowly emerged. David had been a successful IT specialist at a large tech company. Then came the layoffs. With no savings and a high-interest mortgage, they'd lost their house within months. They'd been living in their car until it was repossessed last week. "Sarah still goes to school," David explained, pride and shame mixing in his voice. "We use the community center for showers, and I keep her uniform clean at the laundromat. She hasn't missed a single day." Sarah looked up from her soup. "I got an A on my math test yesterday, Daddy." David's eyes filled with tears. "That's right, sweetheart. You did." Marcus watched them, thinking about his own situation. Yes, he was losing his restaurant, but he still had his apartment above the shop. It wasn't much, just a small 2-bedroom space he rarely used since his divorce 3 years ago. But it was dry, it was warm, it was empty. "Listen," Marcus said, surprising himself. "I have some space upstairs. It's not fancy, but there's a spare bedroom. You and Sarah could stay there while you figure things out." David's spoon clattered against his bowl. "We can't accept that. You don't even know us." "I know you're a father trying to keep his daughter in school," Marcus replied. "I know you're both cold and wet, and I have empty rooms going to waste. Sometimes that's all you need to know." Sarah looked between the two men, hope dawning on her tired face. "Could we really stay inside, Daddy, in a real room?" David struggled visibly with the decision. Pride warred with practicality, but one look at his daughter's hopeful expression seemed to settle it. "We can help," he offered quickly. "I noticed your computer systems are outdated. I could help modernize them, and I can clean, do maintenance, whatever you need." Marcus almost laughed at the irony. "Well, about that." He gestured to the empty restaurant. "I'm actually in the process of closing down. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to sign bankruptcy papers." To his surprise, David's eyes lit up. "Bankruptcy? Have you had your books audited? Because I noticed some irregularities in your point-of-sale system when we walked in. The interface is showing signs of tampering." Marcus stared at him. "Tampering?" David nodded enthusiastically. "I specialized in financial software security. If someone's been messing with your system, I could trace it." For the first time in months, Marcus felt a tiny spark of hope. He thought about the mysterious discrepancies in his accounts, the numbers that never quite added up, and his former accountant's nervous behavior before quitting abruptly 6 months ago. "Tell you what," Marcus said, making a decision that would change all their lives. "Stay here tonight. Tomorrow, instead of signing those bankruptcy papers, maybe you can take a look at my books." Sarah, who had been quietly finishing her soup, spoke up. "Does this mean we get to sleep in a real bed?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, it does. And tomorrow morning, I'll make you both breakfast. I make pretty good pancakes." "With blueberries?" Sarah asked hopefully. "With blueberries," Marcus promised. As he led them upstairs to the apartment, showing them the spare bedroom with its twin beds, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, the satisfaction of doing something truly right. Maybe he was crazy, offering shelter to strangers. Maybe this was just delaying the inevitable end of Golden Palace. Or maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. That night, as Marcus lay in his own bed listening to the quiet sounds of his unexpected guests settling in, he realized that sometimes the best decisions are the ones that make no sense at all. The morning sun streamed through Golden Palace's windows as Marcus worked in the kitchen, the sizzle of pancakes filling the air. The familiar routine of cooking brought him comfort, even as his mind raced with worries about the future. The sound of small footsteps on the stairs made him smile. "Good morning," Sarah said shyly, her hair still messy from sleep. She wore the same clothes as yesterday, but her face was freshly washed. "Perfect timing," Marcus replied, flipping a blueberry pancake onto a plate. "Where's your dad?" "He's already working on your computer," Sarah explained, climbing onto a stool at the kitchen counter. "He said he found something important." As if on cue, David burst into the kitchen, his eyes bright with excitement. "Marcus, you need to see this. Your accounting software has been systematically altered over the past 2 years." Marcus set down his spatula. "What do you mean, altered?" Someone's been skimming money from every transaction, David explained, running his hands through his disheveled hair. Small amounts, just a few cents here and there, but it adds up. They also inflated your supply costs in the system. The real bills were lower, but the difference was being diverted somewhere else. Marcus felt his knees weaken. He grabbed the counter for support. My old accountant, Peter. He always insisted on handling everything digitally, said it was more efficient. He gave himself a back door into your system. David nodded. I can prove it. We're talking about thousands of dollars every month. Sarah watched them both, quietly eating her pancakes. Does this mean the restaurant isn't really broke? She asked between bites. Marcus and David exchanged looks. It's not that simple, Marcus explained. We need to prove everything, and that takes time. The bankruptcy hearing is today. We can ask for an extension, David said quickly. I can prepare a preliminary report showing evidence of fraud. No judge would force a bankruptcy with potential criminal activity involved. Marcus thought about it. The restaurant's savings were gone, but he still had enough inventory for a few days of service. If we could stay open while investigating. I can help. Sarah chimed in. I'm good at organizing things, and I can do my homework at that table by the window. Her enthusiasm was infectious. Marcus found himself nodding. Okay, David, can you get that report ready in 2 hours? I'll call my lawyer. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The bankruptcy hearing was postponed pending investigation. David worked tirelessly, documenting every fraudulent transaction. Sarah set up her homework station near the front window, inadvertently becoming a topic of interest for passing customers. Word spread quickly in the small community. Regular customers started returning, curious about the lights being on at Golden Palace. Marcus kept the menu simple, cooking what he could with limited supplies. David, between his computer work, learned to operate the cash register and help serve customers. One evening, as they sat counting the day's earnings, Sarah asked, Where did all the dragons come from? She pointed to the paintings on the walls. Marcus smiled. My grandfather painted them. He said dragons bring good luck. Are they working? She asked seriously. Marcus looked around the restaurant. The tables weren't full, but they'd had a steady stream of customers. David had already uncovered evidence of over $50,000 in stolen funds. And somehow, this broken little family they'd formed was beginning to heal each other. You know what? He said. I think they are. David looked up from his laptop. The police want to interview me tomorrow about the evidence. They're taking this seriously. Good, Marcus nodded. But right now, it's dinner time. Sarah, want to learn how to make dumplings? Her face lit up. Really? Can I? As Marcus taught Sarah how to fold dumpling wrappers, with David documenting everything on his phone, he realized something important. The restaurant wasn't just a business anymore. It had become something more, a home, a fresh start, a place of healing. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to bed, David and Marcus sat at the kitchen counter, sharing a pot of tea. Thank you, David said quietly, for everything. Marcus shook his head. No, thank you. Both of you. You've given this place a second chance. You've given me a second chance. Outside, the city lights twinkled, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. But inside Golden Palace, 3 lost souls had found something they didn't even know they were looking for, a family. Ted. The police investigation into Peter's fraud moved quickly. Detective Laura Martinez sat across from David in Golden Palace's dining room, reviewing his findings with growing interest. Her eyes widened as David walked her through the complex trail of stolen money. This is impressive work, she said, making notes. You've done half our job for us. Where did you learn forensic accounting? I used to work in financial security, David explained, his confidence growing. Before everything happened. He glanced at Sarah, who was doing her homework at her usual window spot, now decorated with small potted plants Marcus had bought her. The detective followed his gaze. Your daughter? Yes, David smiled. She's the reason I keep going. Detective Martinez closed her notebook. Well, Mr. Wilson, based on your evidence, we're issuing an arrest warrant for Peter Chen today. The DA believes we have a strong case. Marcus, who had been listening from behind the counter, let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. What happens next? The court will likely order restitution of the stolen funds, she explained. But these cases take time. Meanwhile, keep all the documentation safe. After she left, David turned to Marcus with excitement. While tracking Peter's theft, I found something else. Your entire business system is outdated. You're losing money in ways that have nothing to do with the fraud. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? David pulled out his laptop. Look at your inventory system. You're ordering supplies without tracking what actually sells. Some ingredients go bad before you use them, and your online presence. It's practically non-existent. Sarah piped up from her homework station. My friend Jenny's mom tried to order takeout last week, but she couldn't find your website. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. I never needed these things before. Customers just came. Times have changed, David said gently. But I can help. Give me 2 weeks to revamp your entire system. Digital ordering, inventory tracking, social media presence, everything. Marcus looked around his restaurant. The lunch rush had been better today. They even had a small line. But they were still far from their glory days. What would it cost? He asked cautiously. David smiled. Room and board for me and Sarah. Plus, maybe a job? Once everything's running? Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. You already have a job. Both of you do. Sarah's our official homework supervisor and plant caretaker, right? Sarah beamed. And dumpling folder. I'm getting really good. Over the next 2 weeks, Golden Palace underwent a digital transformation. David worked tirelessly, often late into the night. He created a user-friendly website with online ordering capabilities, set up an inventory management system that automatically tracked supplies, and established a social media presence. Sarah, inspired by the changes, started a Kids Corner blog on the website, writing about her favorite dishes and sharing stories about life in the restaurant. Her innocent, cheerful posts attracted local attention, and families began coming in specifically to sit near Sarah's corner. One evening, as they closed up, a notification pinged on the new system. Marcus stared at the screen in disbelief. 50 online orders for tomorrow's lunch rush, he gasped. David grinned. Your food was never the problem, Marcus. People just needed a way to find you. Look at these analytics. Our social media posts reached over 5,000 local people this week. Sarah, who was helping to wipe down tables, called out, Ms. Parker from school ordered too. She saw my blog post about your special noodles. Marcus sat heavily in a chair. We'll need help. I can't handle 50 orders alone. I've been thinking about that, David said. We should hire Sarah's friend Jenny's mom. She mentioned she's looking for work, and she has restaurant experience. Marcus looked at them both. David, who had gone from sleeping in an alley to revolutionizing his business, and Sarah, who had turned a homework station into a marketing tool. They weren't just tenants or employees anymore. They were family. You know, Marcus said slowly, I never asked. Why did you learn so much about restaurant systems? David laughed. I put myself through college working in restaurants. Always thought I'd open my own place someday. Life had other plans. Maybe life's plans just took a detour, Marcus suggested. How would you feel about being an official partner in Golden Palace? We could register the business under both our names. The look of shock on David's face was priceless. Sarah squealed and hugged them both. Golden Palace wasn't just surviving anymore. It was transforming into something entirely new, a blend of traditional cuisine and modern innovation, of second chances and new beginnings. And this was just the beginning. The morning sun hadn't yet risen when Marcus and David arrived at Golden Palace. With 50 online orders to prepare for lunch, they needed an early start. The kitchen hummed with energy as Marcus began prep work while David set up the new ordering system's display screens. The police called last night, David said, adjusting a monitor. They've frozen Peter's accounts. They found most of the stolen money. Marcus nearly dropped the wok he was holding. How much? Almost $78,000, David replied. The court hearing is next week. Detective Martinez says it's a clear-cut case. Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock at the front door. Jenny's mom, Lisa Chen, no relation to Marcus, stood outside with Sarah and Jenny. The two girls had convinced their parents to let them come early to help set up. Good morning, Lisa called out as David let them in. I brought fresh coffee and some ideas for organizing the kitchen workflow. Lisa had 20 years of restaurant experience, and it showed. Within an hour, she had reorganized the prep station and created an efficient system for handling multiple orders simultaneously. Sarah and Jenny set up their home workstation, which had become a popular feature among customers. The local newspaper called, Jenny announced, pulling out her books. They want to interview Sarah about her blog. Sarah blushed. They said it's the first kid-run restaurant blog in the city. Can I do it, Dad? David looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Of course, sweetheart. Just be yourself. As the morning progressed, more changes took shape. The new digital display system in the kitchen showed incoming orders in real time. Lisa trained 2 new servers they'd hired to handle the increased customer flow. The dining room had been rearranged to accommodate more tables while maintaining a cozy atmosphere. At 11:30 a.m., the first online order notification pinged, then another, and another. Here we go, Marcus said, taking a deep breath. The lunch rush was unlike anything they'd seen in months. Online orders kept streaming in while walk-in customers filled every table. Sarah and Jenny helped by greeting guests and explaining the new digital menu system to older customers who were unfamiliar with QR codes. Table 7 loves the blog, Sarah reported excitedly. They ordered everything I recommended. In the kitchen, Marcus and Lisa worked in perfect sync, with David running interference between the kitchen and dining room. The new system tracked everything, from ingredient usage to popular dishes, making the chaos manageable. By 2 p.m., when the rush finally slowed, they had served over 70 meals, their best lunch service in over 2 years. This is incredible, Lisa said, wiping her brow, and tomorrow will be even busier. We already have 65 online pre-orders. Marcus looked around his transformed restaurant. The new tablets at each table allowed customers to order directly to the kitchen. The digital displays showed wait times and order status. Even the ancient cash register had been replaced with a modern point-of-sale system. But more than the technology, it was the people who had transformed Golden Palace. David's business acumen, Lisa's experience, and Sarah's innocent charm had breathed new life into the place. The afternoon lull was interrupted by Detective Martinez walking in with a folder. Good news, she announced. Peter took a plea deal. The court has ordered immediate restitution of all stolen funds, plus damages. You should have the money by next week. David hugged Sarah, who had run over to hear the news. Marcus sat down, overwhelmed. We did it, Dad. Sarah exclaimed, then froze, realizing what she'd said. I mean, Mr. Chen, I'm sorry. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. No, Sarah. Dad is just fine. After all, we're family now, aren't we? David put his arm around his daughter. Yes, we are. Lisa cleared her throat. Well, this family better start preparing for dinner service. We have 30 reservations tonight. As they all returned to work, Marcus watched his newfound family in action. David was teaching Jenny how to update the website. Sarah was arranging fresh flowers on the tables. Lisa was mentoring the new servers. The restaurant wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The dragons on the walls seemed to smile down at them, their painted eyes twinkling with approval. Later that evening, as the dinner rush began, Marcus realized something important. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead to the best changes. His restaurant hadn't just been saved, it had been transformed into something better than he could have imagined. And they were only getting started. The local newspaper article about Golden Palace appeared on a bright Tuesday morning. The headline read, Local Restaurant's Remarkable Revival, How a Homeless Father and Daughter Helped Save a Community Landmark. Sarah couldn't stop staring at her picture on the front page of the local section. The photographer had captured her at her home workstation, surrounded by plants and smiling customers. The article detailed everything. Marcus's kindness in taking in David and Sarah, the discovery of the fraud, and the restaurant's amazing transformation. Your blog got 300 new subscribers this morning, David told Sarah as she helped set up for breakfast. And our reservation system crashed twice from all the booking requests. Marcus was in the kitchen with Lisa, preparing for what they expected to be their busiest day yet. The phone hadn't stopped ringing since the paper came out. Channel 5 News wants to do a feature story, Lisa called out, checking her tablet. They're calling it The Golden Palace Miracle. Just then, the front door chimed. It wasn't opening time yet, but Marcus recognized the visitors, the mayor and several members of the city council. Mr. Chen, the mayor said warmly, "We read the article. The city council had an emergency meeting this morning. We have a proposal for you." The proposal turned out to be more than they could have imagined. The city wanted to feature Golden Palace in their new Local Heroes initiative. They would provide a grant for renovation and expansion, on one condition: the restaurant had to start a program helping homeless families get back on their feet. "We want you to show others what you showed David and Sarah," the mayor explained. "That sometimes people just need a chance." Marcus looked at David, who was already taking notes on his laptop. Sarah had moved closer to listen, her eyes wide with excitement. "We could use the empty space next door," David suggested. "Turn it into a training facility. Teach people restaurant skills, business management, computer systems. And I could help teach their kids," Sarah added eagerly. "Show them how to do homework while their parents work, just like I do." Lisa stepped forward. "I know at least 3 other restaurants that would hire trained staff. We could create a whole network." The mayor beamed. "This is exactly what we're looking for. We'll fast-track the permits." As word spread through the community, support poured in. Local businesses began calling with offers to help. The tech company that had laid off David reached out, wanting to donate computers and provide free training. A nearby hotel offered to house families while they got back on their feet. By afternoon, the line outside Golden Palace stretched around the block. But it wasn't just customers waiting. People were bringing donations, offering services, wanting to volunteer. Sarah's homework station had turned into an impromptu community center, with children doing their homework while their parents filled out forms to either help or receive help from the new program. "We need a name for it," David said as they watched the scene unfold. "The program, I mean." Sarah thought for a moment. "How about Golden Chances? Because Golden Palace gave us a chance, and now we're giving chances to others." Marcus felt his heart swell with pride. Golden Chances it is. As evening approached, the restaurant was more packed than ever. The mayor had returned with local news crews, and cameras captured the incredible atmosphere. Regular customers sat beside homeless families, sharing meals and stories. Business owners discussed job opportunities with people who'd lost hope. Children played and did homework together, regardless of their circumstances. Lisa organized an impromptu cooking class in the kitchen, teaching basic skills to a group of eager learners. David had set up a computer station where he helped people create resumes and learn basic software skills. At the center of it all was Sarah, confidently showing other children how to make their own blogs, explaining how she turned her homework station into a symbol of hope. Marcus watched it all from behind the counter, barely believing how much had changed in just a few months. From bankruptcy to community cornerstone, from empty tables to overflow crowds, from loneliness to family. "You know what, boss?" Lisa said, joining him at the counter. "I think your grandfather's dragons really do bring luck." Marcus smiled, looking at the painted dragons on the walls. "No," he said, watching David help a homeless man fill out a job application while Sarah taught his daughter how to fold dumplings. "Not luck. They bring people together. That's even better." The Golden Palace had become more than a restaurant. It had become a beacon of hope, a symbol of second chances, and proof that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose. And this was just the beginning of their story. 6 months after the launch of Golden Chances, Golden Palace had become unrecognizable, in the best possible way. The renovation was complete, transforming the restaurant into a modern community hub while maintaining its traditional charm. The once empty space next door now housed the Golden Chances Training Center, where David led classes in business technology and restaurant management. The sound of typing mixed with the clatter of pots and pans as Lisa conducted cooking classes in the newly expanded kitchen. Sarah sat at her upgraded homework station, now a proper corner with comfortable seating and study spaces for multiple children. She was helping Maria, a new student whose family had joined the program last week. "See?" Sarah explained, pointing to her tablet. "You can blog about anything you love. I write about the restaurant, but you could write about art since you love drawing." Marcus watched from the doorway as Maria's face lit up. Just 6 months ago, Maria and her mother had been living in their car. Now, her mother was training as a pastry chef, and Maria was flourishing. Mr. Chen. A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was James, that first Golden Chances graduate, now a successful manager at a downtown cafe. The new point-of-sale systems you recommended are working great. Our sales are up 30%. The success stories kept coming. 25 families had completed the program so far, with all of them finding stable employment and housing. The mayor's office had started receiving calls from other cities, wanting to replicate the model. David appeared beside Marcus, tablet in hand. The numbers for this month are incredible. We've served over 3,000 meals, trained 15 new students, and the online ordering system is handling hundreds of orders daily. But it wasn't just about the numbers. The restaurant had become a place where barriers disappeared. Business people in suits sat next to program participants, sharing meals and stories. Children from different backgrounds did homework together at Sarah's corner, while their parents learned new skills or enjoyed meals they had helped prepare. The kitchen door swung open as Lisa emerged with a group of trainees. Today's special was created by our students, she announced proudly. Golden Palace Fusion Tacos, a perfect blend of Chinese and Mexican cuisine. The restaurant erupted in applause. Among the trainees, Marcus recognized Rosa, Maria's mother, beaming with pride. 6 weeks ago, she'd barely known how to use a commercial kitchen. Now she was creating innovative dishes that customers loved. Dad. Sarah called out. She now called both Marcus and David Dad without hesitation. Channel 5 is here again. They want to do a follow-up story about Golden Chances. The news crew set up their equipment while David organized the trainees and graduates for interviews. The reporter, Amy Chen, again, no relation to Marcus, had covered their story from the beginning. This is remarkable, Amy said, looking around. When we first covered Golden Palace, it was about a restaurant's revival. Now it's about reviving an entire community. The cameras rolled as current and former program participants shared their stories. Children proudly showed off their homework and blogs. Trainees demonstrated their culinary skills. The piece would showcase not just success stories, but the ripple effect throughout the community. The real story, Marcus told the camera, isn't about saving a restaurant. It's about what happens when people believe in each other. When we give people a chance, they often surprise us with their strength and talent. David added, Golden Chances isn't just a program. It's proof that everyone deserves an opportunity to rebuild their lives. Sarah, who had overcome her camera shyness months ago, concluded the interviews with her own perspective. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, and the best chances are the ones we give each other. After the news crew left, the restaurant settled into its evening routine. The dining room was full, with the happy sounds of conversations and laughter filling the air. The training center hummed with activity as evening classes began. Marcus stood in the center of it all, remembering that rainy night when he'd first seen David and Sarah in the alley. How close he'd come to walking away, to giving up on everything. Penny for your thoughts? David asked, joining him. Just thinking about dragons, Marcus smiled, looking at the painted walls. And luck, and family. Sarah appeared between them, putting her arms around both her dads. And Golden Chances? Yes, Marcus agreed, watching as another family walked through their doors, hope in their eyes. Especially Golden Chances. The restaurant wasn't just alive. It was thriving, transforming, and growing. But more importantly, it was helping others do the same. 1 year to the day since Marcus had found David and Sarah in that rain-soaked alley, Golden Palace was preparing for a special celebration. The restaurant had been transformed into a grand party space, with golden lanterns hanging from the ceiling and tables arranged for a feast. Everything ready? Marcus asked, adjusting his tie. He rarely dressed formally anymore, but today was different. Perfect, Lisa replied, directing the staff, all Golden Chances graduates, as they put finishing touches on the decorations. The mayor and city council are already here, and the other guests are arriving. Sarah, now 10 years old and wearing a beautiful golden dress, was showing a group of children around her corner, which had grown into a proper youth center. And this is where we started our kids' blog network, she explained proudly. We have 50 young bloggers now. David emerged from the training center, where a new plaque was being installed. The governor just arrived, he said, straightening his own tie. And guess what? The state approved funding to expand Golden Chances to 5 more cities. The restaurant was filled with familiar faces, program graduates and their families, regular customers who'd become friends, business partners who'd supported their vision, and community leaders who believed in them. Rosa, their star graduate, was now head chef at a prestigious restaurant downtown, but she'd insisted on catering this event herself. The aroma of her signature fusion dishes filled the air as servers, all program participants, moved skillfully through the crowd. The mayor stepped up to the microphone they'd set up near the dragon paintings. 1 year ago, she began, this restaurant was about to close its doors. Today, it's the heart of our community. Golden Palace and the Golden Chances program have helped 75 families find homes and jobs. They've trained over 200 people in professional skills. But most importantly, they've shown us what community really means. As applause filled the room, Marcus noticed a young woman and her small son standing nervously at the entrance, looking just as lost as David and Sarah had a year ago. Without hesitation, Sarah spotted them too and rushed over. "Welcome to Golden Palace," she said warmly. "Are you hungry? We have plenty of food." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "We saw the sign about the program. I lost my job last month, and—" "Then you're in exactly the right place," David said, joining them. "I was standing right where you are 1 year ago." Marcus watched as David and Sarah led the newcomers to a table, already making them feel at home. Lisa quickly brought over plates of food, while other program participants gathered to share their stories and offer support. "Full circle," a voice said beside him. It was Detective Martinez, who'd become a regular customer and friend. From one family to hundreds. Marcus nodded, emotion tightening his throat. The restaurant was now running a successful business training program, a youth education center, and a support network for families in need. But more than that, it had become a place where hope was served daily alongside the food. Sarah's homework corner had evolved into a tutoring program, helping dozens of children stay in school despite their families' challenges. David's technology training had expanded to include partnerships with major companies, creating direct pathways to employment. Lisa's culinary program was now certified, launching careers in restaurants across the city. As Marcus looked around the crowded restaurant, he saw not customers but family. Every person there had a story of transformation, of second chances, of community support. The governor was presenting them with an award for community service, but Marcus barely heard the speech. His attention was on the new family being welcomed into their circle, just as David and Sarah had been welcomed a year ago. "Dad," Sarah appeared at his side, taking his hand. "Remember when you said your grandfather's dragons bring people together?" "I remember." "Well, look," she said, gesturing to the room full of people sharing food, stories, and hope. "They're still doing it." David joined them, putting his arm around Sarah. "They sure are." As the celebration continued around them, Marcus realized that Golden Palace had become more than just a restaurant, more than just a training center, more than just a community hub. It had become a symbol of what was possible when people opened their hearts and gave others a chance. The dragons on the walls seemed to smile down at the scene, their painted eyes twinkling with approval at what their restaurant had become, not just a place where food was served, but where lives were transformed and families were formed, one golden chance at a time. The end.